I am extra croaky today.
Mm.
Nice tinkling of your whiskey. Uh,
Coffee, thank you.
at 9:23.
Oh, dude, I was just exhausted when I got home. I've been sleeping for like the last hour and a half.
Baller. Welcome to another episode of the Super Movie Studies Podcast, a community of superhero movie fans, teachers, and students. People looking to discover more about superheroes and their history with the world, because both are awesome. I'm your comic book cultured host, Michael Maurer, joined by the movie maestro
James Schuyler Houtsma.
and the scientific scholar.
Ben Anderson. SMSP is your premier movie discussion podcast. Every week we continue our journey, exploring our favorite subject, superhero movies. Every fan sees movies differently, so we gather some amateur experts to discuss certain aspects of the movie.
Whether it's money, comic books, music, science, or failing this city, SMSP talks about it all in this week's episode. Arrow Season 1. And yes, there will be spoilers.
Oh boy, Tommy dies. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way,
Spoilers.
yeah,
Fucking
spoilers.
Laurel.
Oh, the dude's dad dies too. We should get that out of the way right away.
Not unless you've seen the second season.
Oh, major spoilers there.
Malcolm Merlyn needs to die. Let's just put it that way. First opinions, season 1. Let's start with the least educated of. By least educated, I mean least involved with watching the show.
Yeah, I'm definitely more educated than both of you.
Yes, on paper that is correct.
But life was a bit crazy this weekend. My grandma's 80th birthday, so that spent all my Sunday, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to get caught up. I watched a season 1 recap and the pilot, and that's about it. But it was good enough that I'm probably gonna watch the rest of the season eventually.
I was gonna say behind a list of other shows that you're probably
Behind a million other things that I have to do.
Yay!
Plus, World of Tomorrow is on Netflix, Don Hertzfeld's new film, and I'm gonna watch that like 20 more times because it's so good.
Oh, good God.
Oh, Arrow season 1. You know, this happened a long time ago for me. I mean, I kept up with that show as it came out pretty much. Freshman year of college, yikes. And I thought this show was so cool. I firmly believe I 100% fall within the demographic they were shooting for, because it's the CW, and they're all like, "Can we get teenagers who like soapy dramas? All right, Dawson's Creek, right over there. Gilmore Girls. Let's get the boys. Smallville, and we're gonna do this little ditty called Arrow." And it totally worked. I mean, I love this show. So much fun combat. So the first season's plot is spectacular. There's tons of very, very subtle DC Easter eggs that make me fill with nerdy glee. Also make me question my knowledge when Deathstroke shows up within 5 minutes of the damn show, and it's totally not Slade Wilson. And apparently there was another Deathstroke, but not really. Look it up, kids. Popcorn Skyler.
Yeah, Arrow Season 1 is just good TV. Going into it, it was pretty frickin' apparent that they cribbed heavily from Batman Begins and how they wanted to tell this story, but I think it worked in the long run. I mean, obviously they've gotten farther away from that down the road, but for the first season, like you said, it has greatly shot action sequences. Characters are really good. Laurel's not the worst yet.
I was so refreshed with how, like, man, Laurel was a really solid character.
She
Before
was.
someone ruined her.
Right. Thea was the one that you just like, oh God, get her away for season 1, and then obviously we know how that turned out. But
Well, we're like, Thea, it's a teenager, lost her dad. Like, imagine going through tragedy and puberty. It's rough.
it's full of drugs.
It's full
No.
of drugs.
No, it's It spun its stories really well, especially in how it balanced the flashback sequences with the current timeline. Um, Obviously, it's a CW show, so they just have to cram in like all of the pop music and hot people they can. But
Of course.
but for its trappings, I think it's still a really good show, or season especially of a show.
It is a must-watch television, I think, of just like the last 5 years of really well put together television. So let's move on to how people thought. I mean, everybody blew up, and like by everybody, I mean like people within our community were just like Arrow. Everybody's watching Arrow. It's amazing. But how well did it really do? What's the stat?
Well, I just have to pull up the story here. I'm sorry. According to an article from TV series Finale back in 2013, around the end of the first season, the ratings for the show were actually pretty decent in that it averaged about 3.25 million for each episode. Obviously, that was good enough to get a second season, kept people tuning in, and I believe from there on, all the ratings just kept going up. In other areas, after the first season was out, it hit Netflix. That obviously had some help in boosting its what's the word I'm looking
Awareness?
for? Sorry. Awareness.
Appearance?
Thank you. God damn, it's late. Yeah, boosting awareness. Netflix was actually where I first saw this show, so I knew a lot of people who got into it at that point. And then on the critical aspect, to this day it has an 86% guaranteed fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes out of 35 critic reviews. So I would say it's pretty successful in getting people to watch it and like it.
Hells yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta learn more about Nielsen TV ratings and just if 3.25 million average is a solid. I feel as if that's really low considering the amount of Americans that probably watch TV on any given day.
That's actually kind of really good.
For how diverse television has become too.
Like considering media fragmentation and yeah, like 3.24 million is that's really solid.
You can charge a fair amount of advertisers CPM.
Yeah, and consider this was back in 2012. We hadn't quite hit the point where Netflix was kind of the domineering TV watching outlet, so people were still tuning in at that point. So yeah, I'd say that even works better in its favor.
All right, so let's move on to
For context, the season 3 of Community was also a little over 3 million viewers per episode.
That is really terrible comparison.
So this show was about as successful as Community.
In its third season, though, that's
In its
totally.
third season.
I feel as if that's totally different. Also, Community was on NBC, not a spin-off of Warner Brothers network.
So it's even better then. Like this show basically did better than Community.
For a season, Community was up and down. All right, well, or down.
Of
I
course, Community didn't get renewed for a fourth season on network TV. Not right away. Maybe.
Moral of the story.
I feel like it skipped
Arrow wasn't
season
on
2 to season
NBC.
5 for some reason, but never
We're
mind.
not gonna Community is a whole nother history of weird stuff that happened to that show. The trail is very interesting, but we're on Arrow right now, season 1. So let's talk about comic books. Most of Arrow season 1 is based on Batman. Come on. I mean, just look at the characters. Oliver Queen, billionaire by day, vigilante by night, witnessed a parent's death in front of him. You have, just line up the characters. Andy Diggle as John Diggle as Alfred. You have Felicity Smoke as your Barbara Gordon. Quentin Lance is your Commissioner Gordon. So on and so on. I mean, Moira and Thea are kind of the only two outliers of the core. Like, you can pretty much line up any other character to a Batman archetype. But
Not
yeah,
not to mention the actual Batman villains that show up, including Firefly in the worst episode of the season.
Yes, debatably. So, but the first spurt of inspiration for this show is based on the comic book Green Arrow Year One by Andy Diggle and Jock, one name. The similarities between this, it was just a 6-issue series. It's just Oliver Queen gets stranded on an island, and that's where he first trains to become Green Arrow. And the main antagonist of that is China White, who we see a lot of in the television show, but not really in any sort of meaningful way. The characters John Diggle, Tommy Merlin, Moira Queen, and Walter Steele are all show exclusive, so they had no real origins in the comic books at any point in time. So I'm not going to talk about them, but I am going to talk about some characters that were prevalent throughout the season and where they came from. Starting with, who is Felicity Smoke? Well, she debuted in Fury of Firestorm, number 23, in 1984. Jerry Conway and Raphael Kayanan. No idea. Felicity, she was a Firestorm side character that was always at odds with the character, fervently reminding him of the collateral damage his super battles caused. Not only life and limb to civilians, but also millions of dollars to her computer software company. So there's some basis of they just plucked out a random computer engineer and said, you're going to be more fleshed out now. Eventually, she marries Ronnie Raymond's son, Ed, and we know Ronnie Raymond to be half of Firestorm. Talk more about Firestorm when we get to Flash. Next character, Thea Dearden Queen, based on the character Mia Dearden. No relation actual to the Queen family. She premiered in Green Arrow, Volume 3, Number 2 in 2001 by Kevin Smith and Phil Hester. Yes, that is right. Writer, actor, director, Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith?
Fat Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, he did a Green Arrow run. He's done a Batman run. He did a Daredevil set for a little bit too. So, and all of those are famous for one reason or another. And so Thea Dearden Queen Mia Dearden is a teenage runaway that turned to prostitution in order to provide for food and shelter. She was rescued from that life by Green Arrow, Ollie Queen, and sought to be his ward, and he initially refused because of his guilt with Roy Harper, the first Speedy. And he neglected Roy, and Roy became a drug addict and lost his limb. More on that later. But he eventually relented, and she got trained in as the second Speedy. She is notably one of the few HIV-positive characters out there as a side effect of her life as a sex slave. Next character.
She's Robin.
So she's Robin.
That's the Batman analog.
Yeah, not in season 1 though. She had no Robin analog in season 1 is the thing.
Oh, okay.
Not until like season 3, and even then she had become something completely distinct.
Okay.
Next up, Detective Quentin Larry Lance premiered in Flash Comics number 92 in 1948. Robert Kanigher and Carmine Infantino, originally a civilian that the Golden Age Black Canary had to save all the time, a male damsel in distress. Is there Prince of Peril? Okay. I had a setup there, but you can cruise through.
Dude in distress.
A dude in distress. There you go.
Duke in distress. There we go.
Duke in distress. That's good. Eventually, he was written as a detective instead of just a bumbling idiot. A detective of Gotham City. He became the husband to Dinah Drake, that first Black Canary, and the father to Dinah Laurel Lance, the second Black Canary. Next character, Laurel. Whoop.
I just wanted to say, sorry, I know I'm supposed not to say that, but
And then you're not supposed
Any-
to point it out, you fuck.
I know. Anyway, Paul Blackthorne is just so good in this show.
He is really good. It makes you want to really go back and watch Dresden Files.
Oh, hell yeah.
Next character, Laurel Lance. Premiered in... I'm sorry. Damn it. Next character... Shut up. Next character, Dinah Laurel Lance. Premiered in Flash Comics number 86, but not really. In 1947, Robert Kanigher and Carmen Infantino again. This is really tricky, okay? So, Black Canary, the first one, a.k.a. Dinah Drake, is a crime fighter of no superhuman abilities, but a strong member of the first comic book superhero team, the Justice Society of America. By first comic book superhero team, I mean the first one ever published. This is confusing. DC Comics used to involve a lot of transferring characters through parallel Earths before they wiped the floor with that in an event called Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s. But before all that, stuff was weird. Black Canary has been active since the 40s as a 30-year-old woman. DC, with the exception of Batman, tries to explain characters' old age. They try to have characters age with them, like the Flash gets replaced, Green Lantern gets replaced on a regular basis. Wonder Woman got replaced a few times, but Batman's the only one that's only replaced like once. But anyway, let's see here. So you see apparently Dinah Drake had a daughter at a young age named, I don't think they gave this daughter a name, but if it was, it would have been Dinah Laurel. I haven't read the book. Which was put into suspended animation because she was cursed. When Dinah learned she was dying of radiation from crossing over from Earth 2 to Earth 1, which she did because her husband died, she had her consciousness transferred into the body of the suspended vegetable daughter she had, who had now grown to full age, hence to explain why she still looked like she was in her 20s and 30s in 1975.
Writers, stop.
That makes
Stop
perfect
it.
sense to me.
Well, they did stop. Like, by 86, they were like, we need to get rid of all these parallel Earths because they're just too confusing. So, after 86, they retconned the whole thing, and now Dinah Laurel Lance is the daughter of the original Black Canary, who was active in the 40s, and Dinah being active in the 80s, and I'll talk more about Black Canary in Season 2. Just wanted to get that straight, though. Best I could. Next character, Shadow. Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters, #1, 1987, written and drawn by Mike Grell. Raised by the Yakuza to kill men who shamed her father, she runs into Green Arrow and assists him in tracking down a murderer and rescuing Black Canary from a kidnapping. She helped Green Arrow kill that kidnapper, so guilt made him super guilty. Also, one time Green Arrow was injured, and she nursed him back to health. But this whole time, Ollie was delirious under her care, but still there was some mixed communication, and they ended up having sex, but he feels that she raped him, and that eventually led to him having a son named Connor Hawke, who would eventually replace Ollie as the next Green Arrow. Comic books, man.
Still slightly better than the Laurel Lance situation.
Well, they learned a bit more by the 80s.
It makes more sense.
All right, so now we're on Roy Harper, a.k.a. Speedy, a.k.a. Arsenal, a.k.a. Red Arrow. Premiered in More Fun Comics number 73, 1941. Mort Weisinger and George Papp. I love this. His father was a forest ranger who died in a forest fire. He was adopted by a Navajo chief, Brave Bow, who died of old age, and then adopted by Oliver Queen. so he had a lot of bow training from a very young age. Known as Speedy because he beat Oliver in a foot race once, because Speedy tends to get mixed up with Kid Flash, Flash's sidekick, because Speedy is kind of doesn't make sense for a sidekick name. He's a happy-go-lucky kid until the early 70s, where there was a long run in which Roy was addicted to heroin. This is one of the most famous comic book runs out there, one of the first to deal with drug addiction, and really, really like actual graphic depictions.
Do you know if that was at the same time, before or after, right around the time when Harry Osborn was getting addicted to painkillers in the 70s in the Spider-Man comics?
It was right around the same time. I believe it came first, I think. I'll have to double check that later. But yeah, the Marvel did the similar thing by having Harry Osborn. No. Okay, I'm not going to get into this. It's too much explanation, and I'm running out of time.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I think we explained a bit of it on Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well. But Roy Harper is a frequent member or leader of the Teen Titans, and he's famous for representing how bad Oliver is at having wards. Because Green Arrow just went on the road for a little bit with Green Lantern and came back to find my ward? A junkie? That's the famous phrase on the cover of the book of Roy Harper shooting up heroin right on the cover.
I'm going to track this down right now.
Next character, Malcolm Merlyn, or just Merlin in the comics, because his actual alter ego is Arthur King, premiered in Justice League of America number 94, 1971, by Mike Frederick, Neil Adams, and Dick Dillon. An early rival to Green Arrow, having publicly beat him in a shooting contest. After that, he falls off the map for a couple of years, comes back as a member of the League of Assassins, with a contract on Batman. GA halts that, and Merlin becomes a freelance assassin, running in with Green Arrow seldomly and really only showing up on a side character as a side character for big events. He is the perfect Green Lantern villain because he's just another guy that shoots arrows, but really he doesn't show up as his main villain all the time.
You said he was a Green Lantern villain.
Oh, my bad. Green Arrow. Hey, man, everybody's so green.
Hey, speaking of which, that cover you were talking about has Green Arrow on it. Or, sorry, Green Lantern. See, I did it there. Well, just being all judgmental, like, what's your answer to this? Fucker.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to take, because Green Arrow and Green Lantern went on the road for a long time. It was Neil Adams and the famous Batman writer who I can't freaking remember right now. Denny O'Neil. Thank you. And they talked about, they were just like, let's look at a newspaper, and we're going to do a comic book story on what we found in the newspaper, because Green Arrow and Green Lantern are just on the road, and they're just going to run into real events. And this was famous. It was one of the most socially active comic books out there, because you had a bleeding liberal with next to the ultimate conservative character. And I had this all written down for later, so I have to phrase this weird. Talking about that comic book series, you have a bleeding liberal versus the ultimate conservative, who is a galactic cop, pretty much. And they were gone for a long time. And again, DC likes to explain, well, what was Speedy doing this whole time? Because he wasn't in any comic books, he just sort of disappeared. Well,
smack, yo.
He was doing smack. And now we're on to the final character, Oliver Queen. More Fun Comics number 73 again, 1941, Mort Weisinger and George Pep. He is the 1940s Robin Hood. Whimsy, but no real popularity in his original inception. A lot of trick arrows that continually defied the laws of physics. Most famous is boxing glove trick arrow. That does not make any sense.
It makes perfect sense. He's You just staple a boxing glove to the end of an arrow and punch people with it.
Well, you would shoot it at people.
Yeah, exactly. And then it would punch them. What doesn't make sense about that?
You should tell me when we talk about season 2, because he uses it in season 2.
Oh, nice. I'm excited now.
By the 1970s, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, I wrote it down, modernized the character, have him lose his fortune, so it transforms him into this urban street dweller fighter for the common man character. And that's when, of course, they paired him with Green Lantern and they went on the road. Moving on. Green Lantern died in the 90s, where his son, Connor Hawke, took over. But popularity waned on Connor. People didn't like him that much. So Kevin Smith was hired to bring Oliver Queen back. And now Green Arrow has been retconned into a much younger version of himself since the New 52 were released in 2011. And that is comic books. It was like as many as freaking X-Men. My God.
I don't know. X-Men's got a lot going on.
Skylar, talk to me about Blake Neely.
All right, I will.
His name.
It's pretty epic. I'll try to keep things brief, just for the sake of time. But I've got 3 clips in the waiting of Blake Neely's score to Arrow season 1. Obviously, the first place to start off is going to be the Arrow theme. If you watch this show for even one season, you will be hopelessly familiar with Neely's energetic sound for this show. Let's take a listen.
Gotta get to those dope violins.
Yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
like you're welcome. Just in case people didn't know what we were talking about there. No, I just like the show itself. You know, this is fun, energetic, not too demanding music that just perfectly fits with the theme of the show. There was a really good cue from probably about 5 episodes in where Oliver's having like some kind of monologue where it's like, I can't be too close to everyone, and it goes through a montage of like Quentin's getting drunk in a bar and everyone's all doing their stuff, and I unfortunately couldn't find that, but there are plenty of good tracks to listen to instead, such as Vigilante Justice.
That was dubstep hot at the time?
I would imagine so. I mean, there are obviously a bunch of dubstep and EDM influences in this soundtrack, but right around 2012, that was a pretty hopping time for it.
I just love the stomping. Eventually point where it's beautiful walk-in music. It makes you feel like a badass if you walk and that music is behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, this music just makes me want to dive through a window for some reason.
Honestly, this is some really well put together action music. It's pretty diverse enough for the show, but they repeat it a lot because it's not like it's just one score for a movie. It's for multiple scenes throughout a season.
Right. Obviously, for like, you're not going to write individual music for every minute of a 23 episode, 40-minute TV show. But there's more variety in this score than you get in a lot of your regular primetime TV music.
True.
And I think for the last one I've got on the docket, it is I Can't Lose You Twice.
Who's rocking that trumpet solo?
Some lucky bastard.
Is it a trumpet or a trombone?
Oh.
Ben, help us out here. Didn't you play?
It sound like ass?
What? Are you not a fan?
It's probably not a trombone if it doesn't sound like ass.
He's not a trombone fan, is what he's saying.
No, I'm friends with. I have many trombone playing friends, but they are not a beautiful instrument in general. Any trombone player will tell you this. They're not beautiful instruments. They're somewhat brash, somewhat coarse.
They're there for comedic purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it wouldn't be an Arrow music segment without throwing at least one sappy proceeding in there.
Something brutish, something really confusingly dramatic. Because I love how the show is really just trying to pull you from like 5 years ago. Oliver was a piece of shit, but now he's trying to make up for that. But like, how much can people forgive him? Because that pilot really, really put the bar pretty high. Of you were dating Dinah Laurel Lance, you cheated on her with her sister, and then led to her sister's death, not counting season 2. And now you want to have her back. Okay.
Yeah, you're kind of shit there, dude.
It's a big uphill battle. But all right, music. Blake Neely has job security. That is what we can determine.
Oh yeah, him, Bear McCreary, and Sean Callery just kind of all three do all of the music television these days.
Good
All
for
of
them.
it. Right.
They're pretty good at it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely for a reason.
Anything else you want to talk about music, Sky Guy?
No, but if the following seasons are anywhere near as good as the music offerings for this first one, I'm going to have plenty to talk about.
Huzzah! You know who also has to talk about stuff? Ben. How are my segues doing, by the way, guys? They're getting better.
They're pretty good.
Good. I haven't gotten lame, which means I'm less funny. So, speaking of lame, Ben,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Have you been huffing paint?
Huffing paint?
Because there are a variety of both short-term and long-term negative health effects associated with, inhaling paint fumes.
Well, let me set up some
Porcupine
context.
Yeah, so let's get context for this.
As you know, in Arrow Season 1, Oliver uses some form of paint over his eyes to help conceal his identity with the hood. Green paint. Very innovative, and I don't think we've really seen that before, at least not on television for
Most
certain.
people just wear a regular mask.
Yeah, like something weird and latexy. But this was sort of like a bit more edgy and more real.
Yeah.
But like it may be war paint, so it may be like pretty safe for you, but it looks like spray paint.
It looks like spray paint. I hope it's not.
Because if it were spray paint, what would that mean, Ben?
Well, if you're spraying yourself in the face with spray paint every night, short term you're going to have an irritated eyes, nose, throat, respiratory tract area, kind of area. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have poor coordination. You're going to have nausea, dizziness, memory impairment. Not good things if you're trying to, be a badass vigilante. So that's short-term exposure. If you're doing this night after night, you're going to have to deal with the long-term health consequences of paint fumes, which are severe. It will kill you. Liver damage, kidney damage, central nervous system problems, seizures, memory loss. Yeah,
Wow.
it's no good.
The list goes on and on.
Cancer.
Death.
Yeah, so if you're painting, be in a well-ventilated, large space. Take breaks to get fresh air, because paint fumes are toxic.
Keep it away from your brain orifices.
Especially if you're pregnant, plan to become pregnant, or a baby.
I would just like to imagine a little baby being like, I'm Green Arrow, and then dying. So
that
next,
baby's really funny, Michael.
well,
Ass.
you know what? I don't win them with smiles. I don't know what that phrase means. I was
I
put
don't
on the
either.
spot.
Again, you should stop huffing paint because cognitive impairment, man.
You know what? I gotta conceal my identity somehow, don't I? And masks
True.
just aren't comfortable.
No.
Speaking of cognitive impairments, what are all these about grappling hooks and stuff?
Oh yeah, grappling hook arrows.
Speaking of owls, tell me about Juice.
Yeah, okay. So Gin and Juice was I believe the third single from Snoop Dogg's 1993 album Doggy Style, in which he advocates for moderation, safety, and responsible use of mood-altering substances such as tobacco and marijuana.
Okay, and trick arrows.
Yeah, trick arrows. So we'll talk about grappling hook arrows today. We can probably do like one trick arrow a season.
Okay, well, he does have a few. I mean, it's not that hard to put an explosive on an arrow. I think they're very tiny the way he had them. Explosives don't have to be really big, right?
Right.
And most of the time, they're just showers of sparks.
Right.
And hopefully, we'll get David on as well to talk about actual arrow wounds.
Yeah.
And what that'll do, because it's a very specific kind of injury, and it's happens a lot. Duh, it does.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
in
nothing
this
would
show,
happen.
yeah. So grappling hook arrows, could they happen? So you shoot an arrow and it sticks in the wall, and then you zip along on a line to it. And they did it on MythBusters, actually, and they determined that you could. There's a couple problems with doing it in real life. Basically, you need a really powerful bow to shoot an arrow hard enough that it will embed itself in concrete.
Or have Odysseus level strength.
Well, it would be both. You'd have to have a bow that can shoot with that kind of force, and you have to be strong enough to pull it back. So there's that. But like nail guns, they can shoot into concrete. So if you can shoot an arrow with the force of a nail gun, yeah, you're probably good. The other hard part is the motor thing that he would use to zip along the grappling hook line. It has to be strong enough, powerful enough torque to pull you along at high speed, but small enough that you can actually carry it with you on your person and have it be light enough that it's not, you know, it's not like you're lugging around like a 300-pound generator. Though it'd be hard to create. It'd be an engineering problem you'd have to solve. But there's no reason that it's impossible.
Well, he just zips away so fast is the thing, and he does it so gracefully too. Like you feel as if like something should move, but he kind of just gets lifted as if he's got like a harness on.
Yeah, almost as if they put him in a harness and then added the arrow, like did it all in like special effects and green screens.
Oh, green screens, nice.
Yeah. So,
I wonder if they couldn't use green screens because of his outfit sometimes.
Probably a blue screen then.
All right. So whatever about grappling hook arrows. I mean, what were you gonna use it for anyway?
Grappling up on buildings.
That's pretty awesome.
Building zip lines. They're actually pretty neat.
Let's get to the big topic.
The big topic.
The whole season finale, the whole plot, the undertaking is all based on Markovian technology, the earthquake machine.
So, again, I didn't get that far in the series, so why don't you explain what it was and how it worked?
Well, if you're familiar, you know, there was a machine that they had to disarm that had the ability to level cities, and it just looked like a really big generator, you know, about the size of a bookcase, pretty close, and with a big pummel on it, and it looked like it was just gonna just ram the ground really hard and cause an earthquake. Because it was just on a fault line, is all, and that's all they had to do. And so they disabled one, but one of them still got away, and it leveled the slums of Starling City.
Okay. So it sounds like the earthquake machine in Arrow was based on a machine that actually existed and was created by Nikola Tesla, legendary mad scientist, in 1893, and he demonstrated it at the world's, I think it was the World's Fair. It was essentially a electricity generator, and basically steam was forced through a series of pipes that would push a piston up and down that was attached to an arm, and that would vibrate at high speed, and it would produce electricity. And the reason it was called an earthquake machine was because the oscillations of this device were so strong that you could feel it vibrate from very far away. And so there's kind of an urban legend that it literally caused an earthquake, although it didn't. Actually.
Didn't they also do this on Mythbusters?
Did they do it on? Yes, they did do it on Mythbusters.
And they proved that it didn't work.
They built a version of it that it didn't use steam; it used regular electricity. But it did the same kind of thing: push the piston up and down, produce these vibrations, and you could feel them really far away. But they put the device on like a modern suspension bridge, and the bridge didn't fall apart.
Yeah, so you're good to go. But what if you put it on a fault line?
It probably wouldn't. Like it.
What would you need to trigger a fault line? A big explosion?
You need like a nuclear device.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like or.
So a big explosion.
you need a big explosion. So you need like an underground nuclear test, fracking.
Oh, really?
Where they make, I don't know exactly how it works, but basically they force, I think it's like they have a way to force natural gas up through the Earth's crust. That has been speculated to cause earthquakes.
Oh, speculation.
Because in regions where they've started fracking, the rate of earthquakes has increased dramatically
Hmm.
in a statistically significant way. So probably fracking can cause earthquakes, but just slamming a piston up and down into the ground, no, not in real life. Not the version that actually existed.
Yeah. But hell was it dramatic.
Yeah. So that's science.
No more science from you, Ben?
That's all I got for now.
Okay.
I'll be back. I'll be back next week. Probably.
Hopefully. All right. So I would say we typically would have two final sections. You know, we would have a guest section come in, Twitter Tom with some fun facts. Kleppy might come in and describe medical procedure of some point or another. But no guests today. This one was hard enough to coordinate with just the three of us this week.
We rescheduled about 20 times. I've been up since 5 a.m. It's 10 p.m. now. I'll let you do the math because I just can't.
You're very tired, I know. And also drinking game rules, those have already been made by separate parties. And I don't know, I don't want to step toes. I feel as if our rules couldn't really compare. They're pretty generic.
Yeah.
And they're good enough to get you through, honestly. And the Season 2 ones are better because the last rule is drink every time you see Laurel. Because by Season 2, that is a necessity.
I get it. It's a meta reference because she's an alcoholic.
Well, yes.
Uh-oh.
To
To be fair.
You're also an alcoholic?
No. You know when you like have a scone for lunch and then nothing for the rest of the day? And like your stomach becomes so empty that you just burp all the time?
Nope. But
And
okay.
you stop muting your microphone because the keyboard's so far away.
Oh. Very nice. So we're gonna skip past all that today.
Jazz.
All that jazz, yes. And we're just gonna wrap it up. Make it nice and shorter, sweeter one. An extended comic book section, a very solid music and science section. But that will wrap it up today, superfans.
A very solid music section and also a science section.
Yes. It looks like that'll wrap it up today, superfans. Super Movie Studies is recorded and produced by Triop Cop Productions. If you like what you hear, rate us on iTunes. If you don't like what you hear, leave us alone. Thank you. That is all. You should by now know how to rate things on iTunes. I don't have to tell you. It's pretty easy to do. And if you don't, you can figure it out quite easily. And that's all we really ask you to do in terms of involvement. We're going to get more involved as the website develops.
The website develops. Actually, it kind of is hard to rate things on iTunes because it's a POS software. It's really awful, profoundly awful. But what's going to be great, triopcop.com. It's where our podcasts are going to be hosted in the future. Is it up yet? Hopefully.
Well, this is going to be a 2-week pre-recording. So by 2 weeks from now, I will. How's this? Right, we're gonna let's give the listeners a little intake on some behind the scenes right now.
Oh boy.
So we're doing season 1 of Arrow. We're doing season 2 of Arrow as well. This is all our big St. Patrick's Day lead up. Couple of shows. Then we're gonna do season 3 of Arrow, round it out. By then, please tell me someone's moved up the schedule. By then, it should be Dark Knight Returns, parts 1 and 2, in preparation for the big movie, Batman Superman.
Oh.
Yes. And then we'll have one. We'll make sure we get Squeak Deadpool in, and then we're gonna have a mailbag. And right after the mailbag, we are going to take a 2-week break, and by then, everything will get moved to triopcop.com. Can promise you that. That'll be about mid-April. That is the current plan.
In a month or two, triopcop.com will be live.
Yay, we're getting our
We'll
shit
hopefully do live
together.
before then, but that will be your go-to place.
Yeah, everything's going to shift. Things are probably going to get retitled, as well as you no longer should ever have to ever go to superheromovieclub.podbean.com ever again, nor should those preambles exist in any of the files.
As a service to you people.
As a service to me.
What do you mean, you people?
As a service to me never wanting to hear
episode
those.
without Skylar being racist. No.
That has also been deleted. So enjoy that while you can, because that file is going to get replaced in a month.
Nice.
That episode. But that is the current Tri-Op Cop plan. I know we gave you a little bit of an update last week, but we were still pretty unsure by last week. But by this week, we actually have a schedule.
Popcorn Skylar.
In the meantime, we will still have an active Twitter feed at SuperM so follow us and send us your questions, comments, and suggestions for us to use on the air, because we will.
Actually, we won't use them. We'll bring in Twitter Tom. He'll use them. He'll pick out his favorites. He's
Okay,
in
he'll
charge
use
of
them.
that. Yeah, he's in charge of it. I mean,
He does a good job.
He does a phenomenal job. I look at it from time to time. I'm sure you guys too. But like, he's the guy who's going to be talking to you, and he's a hoot.
Yeah, and maybe one day we'll get the Facebook to be accurate. But I doubt it.
We are not touching the Facebook. It's gone.
And yet we still get shares on there, so.
Okay, it'll never be updated by me. I'm not wasting my energy.
Fair enough.
That'll do it today. I'm your host, Michael Maurer.
James Skylar Houtsma.
And I'm Ben Anderson.
And I hope you all have a super week.
Bye.
You have failed this city.